Hi, welcome to another exciting episode of The Nest where we discuss everything babies. On today's episode, we're discussing babies and health. I am your host, Gladwell Kameni. Think of this, for every parent, it is a nightmare for your baby to be unwell. All of us, especially here in the tropics, overdress our babies and would rather deal with heat rash than any other disease. Well, it remains inevitable that our babies may fall sick sometimes. On set, I have a beautiful, amazing mom who will be sharing her story on how she was able to overcome a situation where her child fell sick for a while. You're welcome on our set.
Thank you so much, Gladwell.
Please introduce yourself.
Okay, thanks. My name is Liz Migwi, and I'm a mother of 3. And I do video and photography. That's my career, that's what I do. And I'm happy to be here.
Mother of 3, you look very young.
Really?
How old are they?
My first is 15, my second is 10, my last one is 7. She just turned 7.
Okay.
Yes.
Congratulations.
So I'm a mother of a teenager.
There's a lot we can learn from you. You're welcome to
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Okay, so I know you had a challenge with your son who fell sick.
Yeah, true.
Tell me, what was he diagnosed with?
It's funny. My son started having fever. I thought, when we were growing up, your mother would come and touch you, say, probably this is malaria, this is what. So I thought, when my son started having fever, I thought maybe it's a kahoma or something.
How old was he?
He was around 6 months. Or teething problem. Actually, I thought it's teething problem or probably just a kahoma. So I gave my son paracetamol, but the fever kept coming back. So until he started convulsing, that's when I knew things were they're not okay. So I had to rush him to hospital. So when I reached the hospital, they told me he has pneumonia. So we were admitted the first day and the second day. So the second night, the doctors told me that he was not responding to the medication. So we were referred to a bigger hospital. And then when we reached the hospital, they called an ambulance. That was my first time.
They called an ambulance for your little baby boy.
Yeah, because at that point, my son was almost lifeless. The only thing he wasn't crying, he wasn't doing anything. The only thing he was doing, he was just convulsing. We went with one of the nurses from the hospital we were in. So I was unable to hold my baby, so the nurse was the one holding my baby because I was just all tears, crying, praying, I don't even know. So when we reached the hospital, we didn't even queue. They just took the baby in, and some of I think around 7 or 8 pediatricians, they took him in. I was told to wait outside. So I waited. It sounded like I was waiting for a week or so because it was so long, but I think it was an hour or so because they were doing some tests. And then after that, they came out, and then what the doctor said, akaniambia, we mama uko na bahati sana. So I was like, okay. Ati ungeleta mtoto wako a few minutes from now, that would be a different case. Like my son would have just died like that.
Wow.
So she told me, your son has pneumonia, your son has malaria, your son has meningitis, your son has low calcium. No wonder he wasn't responding to the previous medication. So we were quickly admitted. Actually, it's sort of an ICU for babies. As in the worst cases, we were actually 2 in that car room. In the worst cases, so we were admitted. And then my son was actually unconscious for around 2 weeks. He wasn't breastfeeding, he wasn't crying, he was just there. So they put a pipe from the nose straight to the stomach. So it would express milk, and then they would put the milk that just went straight to the stomach. So for those 2 weeks, it was, I don't know, it was just hell because he was just there. He was just there. So
his eyes are closed, his eyes are open. Is he moving?
He was just breathing. At least they had contained the convulsion. He wasn't convulsing, and at least he didn't have fever, but he was just there lifeless with pipes and those injections here. At some point he had swollen both hands because of the injection, so they had to put another one here. You know those ones they open and then they put the medicine and then they close. So in the second week, now it was now in the one for the head, they would open and then put the medicine, and that was it. But now having to see your son like that, and then it was the way the doctors were putting it, it was a 50-50 thing. Your son might pull through or he might not. So actually at some point they started counseling me, because they were telling me, your son has had 15 convulsions. So they're giving me examples of kids that have had maybe 3 convulsions, and already, because what convulsion does, it shakes, I don't know, it shakes the brain, and it can affect your child. So mine had 15. Actually he had the highest number of convulsions in that one. That's what the doctors were saying. So they were giving me examples. You see, like that one, he's had 3 convulsions, and already they're partially blind. Given another example, you see that one, you know, so some examples. So they were telling me yours has 15.
These are 15 convulsions. And there are convulsions that happened from the time you arrived at the hospital, or
no, they were counting from the time he started convulsions, from the first day. Now in a span of from the time he started convulsing, that was the first day he was diagnosed with pneumonia, and the time I took him to now the referral hospital. Now they were counting all of them. It was 15 now.
So you said pneumonia, meningitis, malaria. The 3.
The pneumonia, malaria, meningitis, and low calcium.
Okay.
Low calcium. So
you were at the place of the counseling.
So they were telling me, if your son manages to pull through, he won't be a normal baby because of the convulsions. Maybe he will be he will have some form of deformity because of the convulsions. So after 2 weeks, I thank God my baby started responding. At least he started crying. That was a good sign. He started at least opening his eyes, but he was really crying, I think because of the pains, the injections and everything. And then there's that, what they do to get the fluid for meningitis. They remove a fluid from the backbone. So the baby, I'm told the baby, because I wasn't there, I was told by the doctor. So they for the baby, and then they remove the fluid from the backbone. It's really painful, and my baby didn't cry. So I think he felt that pain after now he started recovering. They did the fluid extraction when the baby was still in the unconscious mode, or after he has already immediately he was taken in. Okay. Immediately he was taken in. So he was so bad that he couldn't even cry. No, he was just lifeless. He was just there, just convulsing. That's what he was doing. So that's when they did the test for meningitis. Now after that, thank God, after 2 weeks he started responding. And funny enough, we were admitted for around 28. We were in hospital for around 28 days. But he responded. He was weak, but at the end of the day, the time we were discharged, he was still weak, but at least they had managed to treat him. Yes. And you hadn't started weaning him. He was only 6 months. He was 6 months. He was just breastfeeding. You're discharged. Then you go home. Yes. How is he now? After being discharged, through what the doctor said, he was weak, because even at 9 months, at 1 year, he was unable to stand on his own. And then he had very light hair. You know, like those children who have, I think, kwashako, the way they have light hair. He was like that for some time, for around 1 year, 1.5 years. So his speech was slow, because even at around even 2 years, his speech was still slow. But my son recovered well after that. Actually, the doctors were telling me this is just a miracle, because they didn't even actually expect him to pull through. So him being discharged, him getting healed, that was just another miracle altogether, especially because of the convulsions, because scientifically it's almost unheard of.
Wow.
For a baby to have all those convulsions and not to have any form of deformity. So that is something I really thank God for.
Yeah, I think you must be very prayerful. Then the question that comes on top of my mind is, did the doctors tell you how was it that it was possible to get 3 different bad illnesses at the same time for such a young child?
Actually, they didn't. What they told me, because when my son was around 2 days, he was diagnosed, he was told he has low calcium, and I was given medication, which I didn't follow through. I think I gave him for around 2 days, and then I stopped. I think I was naive or something. So I gave him for around 2 days and stopped, but that escalated to around, by the time he was 6 months, you see the condition was worse. So if I gave him that medication then, and probably he completes the dose, probably it wouldn't have escalated to that.
And were you told the reason why the low calcium happened? Did you ask?
One of the things they said, I had poor eating habits when I was pregnant.
Wow.
And which was true. I used to junk a lot. I wasn't eating healthy.
Cravings.
Yes, those cravings. So I used to junk a lot. So that also contributed to that.
And now that you're breastfeeding, your diet, tell me that you improved.
No, yeah, not really, but I improved. At least I tried to eat healthy. But though that time I wasn't, my cravings, I have a sweet tooth, so I used to eat so many junk foods, things that wouldn't help the baby. So it affected him later on in life.
Okay. And for you, you don't have any calcium deficiencies?
I had, by the way, because even that time I was given medications for calcium and I was expectant. So I think I also had that issue because I was given the same medication. Yes.
Tell me about your most challenging experience in your season where your baby is now in hospital. I don't want to go specifically to what season, whether it was the unconscious or the child has come back. Which was the most challenging season, seeing your little baby, you know, having pipes all over their body and all? What was the most difficult thing in that season?
I think the most difficult is there was a night, my son, the time he started now crying and responding, I remember, because where the hospital I was in, there were no beds for parents, it was just for kids, so we used to sit the entire time. So I remember that
you sit through the night.
Yes. So it's just the baby, he's here, you seated here. So I remember that night, it was around in the afternoon, my son woke up, kind of looked at me, like looked around, and then his eyes rolled back like he was God. So see, I pressed those 2 buttons, you know, those ones for emergency. I pressed. So I think he was going or something, because me, I just cried. I pressed the button. So the pediatricians came. So when they came, I was told to wait. Around eight top pediatricians in that hospital were attending to him. So they were telling me they have to resuscitate my son, but they don't. Kids are not resuscitated with the machine. There's a way they do with their fingers. So they did that to my son because he was almost going. I think that was, to me, was the most, it was the most hurtful and painful experience, having to see your son like that, and there's nothing you can do. You've prayed, you have cried, you've done everything, you've called people to stand with you, and it seems like he's just getting worse every day. But they managed to like bring him back. He responded, and then he was put those oxygen, I don't know what they're called, the terms, but he was put on that and he responded. I think that to me was the worst experience. And then during the night, at around, I don't know what happens, at around 2, 3, you would hear a woman cry, yell, and around that time.
Oh goodness.
And then when you hear that, you just know that's another baby gone, that's another baby gone. I think it's a bad experience. So during that time, you wouldn't sleep. The best would be just look at your baby and pray. Because if you hear a cry, a yell, you would know definitely that is another baby gone. I wouldn't wish that even to my worst enemies. The worst experience ever.
Wow. But you sailed through.
We sailed through by the grace of God. By the grace of God. If it were not for God, I don't know. I don't know.
So looking back, what are the things that you'd say were your anchors? Like, what kept you, you know, strong and positive and going? Because I know that there are moms who are watching who have babies who are unwell and who've been given a very negative report. Yeah, what kept you going?
I'd say God, because that time I was unable to pray. But I had people who, I had a very strong support system, especially from my husband and my family and friends and guys from our church. They used to pray. Every time they used to visit, we used to pray so much. I think that, and the fact that, you know, God will never let you go, that he always hears, even those, you know, those silent prayers when you feel like you're discouraged, God is just far, he can't even hear. The more you're praying, is like things are getting worse. Imagine he hears, he listens. That fact that God is always with us, he'll never leave us nor forsake us. Even those moments, the darkest of moments, he's there. I think that kept me going. Just knowing that God will never leave me.
That's called faith.
That's called faith.
Yeah. How do you separate teething symptoms and other diseases?
So most of the time it's for teething, you'll find that the baby probably will just have drool, but the fever tends to be very mild. So it will probably be around 37.5, 37.4, and that one is you're safe. But when the baby starts having a fever above 37.8, that tells you that now this is a real infection. It's just not the mild fever that comes with teething. So I encourage every parent to have a thermometer at home. They are quite affordable, so that you can be able to test, because just feeling the baby is not a good guide on actually what the fever is. Sometimes you even say the baby has a fever and it's yourself who is feeling hot, you know. So having a thermometer will be able to get an accurate reading, and ask your nurse or whenever you go for clinic to show you how to actually take the temperature. You also need to know how to. Yes. So 37.8, anything above that one is a real infection. You need to take the baby to hospital. Okay, before we tell guys to go get the doctor to or the nurse to advise them on thermometer use, because I remember it actually happened to me where I have the thermometer, but I actually have to Google the babies, you know, how do you use it? How do you, what would you recommend in passing? I mean, just buy one even as you're going to deliver the baby. By the time you're leaving hospital, ask them to show you how to use the thermometer. Or if you didn't buy one when you go for your first clinic, sometimes babies are okay at that point. Most babies is when they start moving around, start interacting with people, then they get exposed to infections, then that's when you see these issues coming. So it's important so that you know. So from the first time that you interact with a medical practitioner, just ask them. It's a 2-minute thing. They'll be able to show you how to accurately use a thermometer, and then you can be able to get an accurate reading. Okay. But in passing, basically it's what mouth. I think I mean, because I realized one of the surprising things I realized is that the mouth temperature and the underarm temperature is different. So for most moms, the underarm tends to be the best way, because if I tell you to take, like, you can do an anal one, you'll be afraid. Sometimes the mouth, you don't know where do I put the thermometer. So the underarm, where you put and then you're able to hold down the baby, that's the one I'm saying, usually 37.8. Okay. It would be higher if you're doing mouth or so usually the underarm will be pretty accurate. It will give you at least a good guide on where your baby is. So anything above that or thereabout, please take the baby to hospital. Okay.
And you do that after exposing the baby, or?
Yes. Usually undress the baby when you suspect a fever. Undress the baby. Sometimes the babies get fever because of being overdressed, but that fever will be mild. It'll probably be 37.5. So undress the baby. Give the baby around 5-10 minutes. You can even take a warm cloth, and wipe down the baby, and then take the temperature after 10-15 minutes. So if it still remains elevated, and undress means remove the clothes. So sometimes you say undress, you just remove the shawl. No, remove the clothes and leave the baby in a vest. Then take the temperature after 10 minutes or so.
Yeah.
And if it's still remaining high, then that tells you, yes, this
There's a
baby,
problem.
there's a problem.
In regards to cooling the baby, it has happened to me very recently,
Yes.
where I actually, you know, we see all this in reading that cool the baby, but you think you're cooling the baby with cool water.
Yes.
So the issue of warm water, I was actually corrected very recently by a nurse. Because
What happens,
you know,
if you use cold water, what happens, because it's rapidly cooling, the baby starts shivering. Now our body's shivering is actually your body's way of warming itself up. So you actually raise the temperature more. So that's why we use warm water, because warm water will be on the skin, then it will evaporate, and when it evaporates, it cools the body. So that's the science behind it. That's why we don't use cold water, because it will lead to shivering. And shivering is when, you know, when it's cold and you're shivering, your body actually warms up. So this baby already has a fever, so when they shiver, their fever will raise further.
I like that.
Yeah.